Everybody. Welcome to one and all to this fifth class in the series of embarking on the journey to live, to learn to live from the heart. In this series, we try to gradually increase our understanding of this subject, and we try to understand how each technique offered by the hierarchy of the masters of the heartfulness method helps individual to gradually arrive at those states of silence where consciousness is cleared, our character starts to refine. So, the expression on the matter field, the field of the matter, the earth, the expression of our life on the field of the matter, which is the earth, is improving. The first thing that really need to sink into our hearts is that we need to realize we are asleep. In few months ago, in one of his talks, Revered Daji talked about this concept of awakening, wakefulness. And all the great masters talked about this concept. So, great effort is needed by us to be alert, to be attentive to this moment, and to be watchful. So, we move to that state of witness. So, efforts are needed to be alert, attentive, and watchful so we can arrive at that witnesshood. That is why all the masters, Swami Vivekananda said, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. So, first step is to wake up, arise. You have to wake up and then you become awake and you become aware of that the goal is possible. And Revered Daji, in one of his quotes, beautifully said that in spirituality, you are the experiment. Individual is the experiment. And you are the experimenter also. You need to experiment on yourself. You are the experiment, you are the experimenter, and you are the outcome. So, spirituality, the practice we are doing is an experiment on ourselves, and we have to consciously practice. We have to be awake, alert, wakeful, and experiment with the path, with the technique, with the method that the great masters are giving. And because of this experimentation on ourselves, there is an outcome which is the transformed self. Our inner self is the field of experimentation. Our consciousness is the field of experimentation. And we have to become the experimenter to try out on ourselves. And then there is a possibility of the outcome of that transformed self. And what is this transformed self? The transformed self arrives at a state of witnesshood. And that state that is praised by the sages is known as Dhyanaja Chitta, a mind that is able to be in a state of meditation, a mind that is centered, a mind that is in a state of witness. So, how to arrive at that state? So, we learned that by regular meditation, day after day, we bring the mind to centeredness. And with cleansing techniques, we remove the patterns of our behavior. And next step is utilizing the trained mind with the power of intention to bring this absolute transformation. So all these are tools. Meditation is a tool. Cleansing is a tool. Power of intention, using the power of intention and making those intentions to change our behaviors, to change our patterns, to change our character is what makes this transformation possible. Without that change, all the masters said progress is not possible, because for so far we have been asleep. And this state of being asleep has reached the very core of our being, and we are soaking in it. So each cell and fiber of our mind has become full of asleep. We are sleeping. And it is not a small phenomena. It is not easy to become awake from that state. And hence, great efforts are needed to become alert, to become attentive, to be watchful, to become a witness. Great efforts are needed. That is why Master has given us opportunities to empower ourselves, to motivate ourselves day after day after day. Why is that He's widened it so much that we are trying to learn every day? Because the time is short. What we have to achieve in this short span of time, we have a vast field to cover. We have no time to lose. And so he is educating us day after day as to what is the goal, what are the means to the goal, what is the true transformation that needs to happen in you. He is training us to become centered. He is training us to move into that space of silence. Why? Because silence is the space in which one awakens. And the noisy mind is the space in which one remains asleep. That is why the sages said that we have been asleep and we need to awake. We have to first arise, get out of that bed, and then we need to be awakened. So silence is the space in which one awakens, and the noisy mind is the space in which one remains asleep. So if your mind continues chattering, you're asleep. In that utter silence, awareness wells up in us. It comes from within, and that is the purpose of sadhana. And so today we proceed on to this topic of how to make intentions and how to utilize them positively, where to make intentions. So let me share my screen so we can all learn together. So this is what I quoted. In spirituality, you are the experiment, you are the experimenter, and you are the outcome. So we have to, with sadhana, upon ourselves, we bring the transformation. So how does this power of suggestion works? So the human being has several capacities: the power of the mind, which is clarity; power of the heart, which is love; power of intention, which is the feeling backed by the will, and a longing in that will, a true longing of that transformation backed by that will makes the intention possible. The last is the power of prayer. With utmost humbleness, when we are able to arrive into the heart's field and submit that intention, transformation happens. So, how does it originate? First is the thought. But thought is just the dust of the mind. the dirt of the mind. Thought has no power to penetrate into the causal field. We have to always remember, we are making the intention from the field of the matter. We are trying to move into the field of the subtle body energy where our consciousness is. From there, we are trying to make an intention that can touch the causal field. But the mind, the thought does not touch the causal field. So the thought has to transform into a feeling, which we train ourselves in meditation. And this feeling is submitted to the causal, and the causal field responds to that feeling, and it sends vibrations, and that vibrations affect the consciousness, and that changed consciousness affects the matter, which is the body, the brain, that starts to think different. So this is the process in intention. So the power of suggestion emanating as a thought from the brain, it transforms into a feeling in the consciousness field, and then it enters the causal body. Causal body responds, it flows into the consciousness, that vibration flows into the consciousness, bringing a shift, and that shift is communicated to the brain where the neural pathways are changing, and we start to see the change in ourselves. So we always make positive affirmations, and we make it from the field of point A. In the left side of your chest, from your left nipple, going 3 fingers inward, 2 fingers inward, and coming down 3 fingers, that is point A. In that field, that is a vibratory field. We're just giving it a name A, but approximately it is near the heartbeat. That vibratory field is directly connected to the causal body. So when you are making an intention there, transforming your thought, when you are coming into the state of utmost feeling of humbleness and submitting that such and such change needs to happen in me, I long for that change, that vibration directly touches the causal field. And our causal body is what is being supported by the Guru's consciousness, the transmission, the prana. The Guru's consciousness, like our consciousness, is not bound by all the samskaras. For our consciousness, we are still working on our subtle bodies, the chitta, the consciousness, the mind, intellect, and the ego. We are still working. But his consciousness is so refined, there is no difference between his consciousness and the causal, which is the ultimate self. So that is why his consciousness, his causal body, supports our causal body with that transmission, the prana, so that our prana supports our consciousness resonates us to make us live better. So point A is the field where you make all intentions. From the center of your rib cage, 4 fingers going inward to the left side of your chest, is point B, which we utilize during the morning meditation to free ourselves of lower tendencies, and 2 fingers above is point A. And this is a picture is given little clear. And 2 fingers down is point C from point B. This is where the impressions enter into our field, the day-to-day impressions. And we mentioned that this point, if we are maintaining remembrance, the flow of vibrations entering from the external world is subsided. It is lowered. And point D is the point where guilt, heavy burden is stored. So we have to understand how the thought flow is happening and why are we making this intention at point A. Thought flow between 7 and 8, an inch behind in the mind, there is a vibratory field known as Chit Lake, where all the thoughts, the karma that we bring into this life is stored there and it's flowing. And it is coming down through the pharyngeal plexus. And that flow is diverted towards the earth plane from point A, because point 1 is the earth. So that flow is coming into the earth so we can go through suffering. And it is actually going through point A and becoming life for us, either suffering or joys. It is the thought flow releasing into the earth, creating life for us from point A. And a part of it is, the lower regions, which is connected to point 7 and all that. We won't go into that details now. So when you are making an intention at point A, this is where it is shifting. In Chitlake, a part of it is going to Atma Chakra, which is the work of the master, because the thought is not thinking about divinity. So, what the masters do is allow the thought to go towards soul and make you experience lightness and peace. So, now you urge to go towards the divine flow. But this point A, when you are making an intention, it is received by the causal field. It is directly connected. And this connection is also at Chit Lake. And this is where samskaras change. When the character changes, the samskara is released. And this is given in a bigger picture here. So, when you make that intention at point A, that my mind, this particular technique helps to make our mind stronger. Because for us to receive the prana is a vibration, it is a power in some level. It is not power, but it is powerless power. But you have to withstand it. You have to have the capacity to withstand it. That's why you don't transmit to babies or you don't transmit to 7-year-old, 8-year-old. You just give them a relaxation and ask them to say a prayer. Why? Because their body, mind is not well developed enough to withstand that force. Now, sometimes we get a little shock. We can bear that. But if you are stuck with that electricity, what happens? You electrocuted, you could die. So, with meditation, what we are doing is we are making our nervous system stronger, our mind stronger. And this particular technique also helps your mind to become stronger so you can withstand the journey in the higher regions. So the technique is come into that field of point A, bring yourself to utmost state of humbleness and connect your heart with the highest consciousness that is present on the earth plane, which is the consciousness of the living guide. And you make this intention, my mind is connected to the absolute mind of that guide who is present on the earth plane, who is connected to the ultimate. My mind is absorbed in this absolute mind. My mind is identical with the absolute mind. And my mind is leaving its perverse tendencies and is acquiring the qualities of that absolute mind. My mind is balanced. A 5 minutes a day, if you can just simply make that intention with a prayerful intention, bringing yourself to utmost humbleness, this will give you a lot of capacity to move forward. There are many positive affirmations that you can make, but you always come into the point A field. You can make this, for example, I am soaking in the cosmic vibration of balance. I'm balanced. I'm soaking in peace, love, and joy. I am peaceful, joyful. I'm soaking in courage and clarity. I'm courageous. I'm thinking clearly. I'm soaking in the vibration of humility and gratitude. I'm humble. I'm grateful. I'm soaking in the vibration of purity and I am pure. Every speck is pure. And correct thinking, right understanding, honest approach to life is developing in me and in everybody. So, intentions at point A field. And without removing the weaknesses, we cannot move forward. If we want to arrive at the witness state, we have to arrive at point 4, which is the water point. That is where you experience a state of cheerful acceptance. You come to a state of choiceless awareness and you arrive at witnesshood. You become humble. So, if we have judgments, you can't arrive at that. That's why most of the people, very difficult for them to cross that point 3. because they're always finding faults with others, they're always criticizing others, they're always blaming others, and it's a habit of complaining, and they're very stubborn. All these qualities that exist in us will not let us move forward from point 3. It does not matter how long you have been practicing this method. Until and unless these things leave, you don't move forward. No wonder Daji tried to share with us in the very beginning. He said it took him 15, 20 years before he crossed from point 3 to 4. Imagine, while we were all fooling around and, you know, running after the physical presence of the master, he was himself working on himself, and he realized the path. And we can be doing the same mistakes again. We need to work on ourselves, experiment on ourselves, and bring out that outcome out of ourselves. So, any meditation, when you are feeling light, you move into that point A and you say, all these defects, particularly this weakness of fault finding, weakness of criticizing, blaming others, complaining, stubbornness, they have left me for good, and I have no attachment to that. We have to say that I have no attachment to that. Why is that? Because a thought flow is coming from the chitlik. The force of the thought is downward flow. And now you are trying to connect this thought with the upward flow. So by negating it, you are able to bypass that. You are submitting a prayerful intention to the superconscious field of the guide. And it is a very powerful technique. And when we start practicing it, you will be amazed at how you see change inside yourself. And this was given by revered Lalaji Maharaj. He says, until the purpose of all this meditation is your senses have to come to a balance, your chakras have to come to a balance, you have to arrive at that original character, your mind has to become silence. Mind is also a sense. So the whole idea of this balance of the senses. So the technique is, all my senses are in a state of balance. They have arrived at their original character. All my feelings are in silence. All the chakras in my system are in a state of absolute balance, and they are in harmony with each other. These are all the intentions you make. When you say all my feelings are in silence, Lalaji Maharaj says that undue attachments, unnecessary attachments that are holding us down will leave. And he says, including the attachment towards the living guide. That was a very powerful thing for me, and I practiced it and I can testify to it. It has helped me tremendously. So, these are the daily practices so far we talked about. In the morning, we do point B cleaning and we connect to the highest consciousness in prayer, recognizing desires or putting a bar. We meditate. And in the morning after meditation, you can try the absolute mind technique and you can make positive affirmations. During the day, we practice the remembrance, pause, we pray before eat. And at 9, we do the universal prayer to help our brothers and sisters and come together. And we do our point A intentions and bedtime, point D introspection, journal writing, and connect to the highest consciousness with prayer. In the evening, we have the cleansing techniques. So, how do we start the day? You start the day after your morning meditation or as soon as you wake up from the bed. You make this intention, come into point A again. This day is unfolding in the highest good. I am flowing through this day, accepting everything with love, joy, and gratitude. I'm grateful for this life. And this life itself is unfolding according to thy will. So, with an attitude of prayer, because prayer, Chariji says, it's not an activity, it is an attitude. And what is that attitude that Daji taught us? He says, come into humbleness. When you come to humbleness, there is a vacuum created and which attracts the power of the grace to flow into us. So, this is a beautiful technique that we can practice. And in remembrance, how do you maintain this remembrance? We are busy with work, we are busy doing so many things. But just like you start the car engine and it keeps going until you put a brake, then again you release the brake and it keeps going. So also remembrance is the same. And you can begin with this suggestion: I am absorbed in the source. Everything around me, animate and inanimate, is also absorbed in the same source. And when you make this, you can even, I notice that when I do it in a particular room, I see a shift in the particles in that particular room. And especially in this meditation room that I am talking right now on give sittings, when I enter from my foyer into this room, there is something coolness. There is an unknown silence. Even ordinary people that come there for the first time, they're able to feel it. And this is what Master says when he said that we have to make our house an ashram. Because we probably may not be able to run to the ashram all the time. But where we live has to become an ashram. And how do we do that? We have to, it doesn't just like that happen. You have to consciously make the particles around you charged with silence and divinity. And this is the technique. I'm absorbed in that ultimate source, the highest consciousness of the highest guide who is present on the earth plane. I'm absorbed in his presence. Everything around me that is animate, inanimate, every particle in this around me is absorbed in the same source. Pray before we eat. So, anytime, any act we do, we center ourselves for a few moments. Like how when you wake up, you center yourself, making the intention that this day is unfolding in the highest good. Same way, even when we eat, we just for a few seconds, you come into the heart and be grateful that you have something, the divine has provided you something to nourish your body. And with that prayer, when we take, now it absorbs into every cell in a purified way. And now it's because it is purified, it supports our consciousness by being absorbed into the consciousness field because it's the flow of the love. And it helps with the flight. So that is the reason why we try to eat light foods, sattvic foods, which will promote lightness, calmness, and peace in our minds. So when we eat heavy foods, we drain the energy, not only ours, but people around us. And especially when you are around your guide, you can really drain him. Because heaviness is flowing out of us. And also, why we feel drained sometimes when we overeat, a lot of times you feel lethargic and drained out instead of being energetic. Why is that? We in our system we have energy fields which are known as koshas. The first is the food sheath, which is the property of the earth, and the earth element in every chakra in our field, in our consciousness field, creates that annamaya kosha, as it is called, the food sheath. When it is overworked, when you eat too much food, it's overworked and it needs energy. So it has to draw energy from the next sheath, which is known as energy sheath, pranamaya kosha. And pranamaya kosha is fire element connected with every chakra inside our system. And then our energy is depleted. So when prana is depleted, you feel tired. That is why when you overeat, you are tired. And you overeat so much with heavy foods, you not only become tired, that vibration affects people around you. So in this topic, why vegetarian food? And a lot of times people argue, in our ancient times, our ancestors, they ate meat, they killed this, that, they went hunting. Yes, all that is true. But they had a way of living. In those days, they could not find anything. That's why Chariji said, if you are in Iceland and you don't get any vegetation, you have to eat fish, you have to survive, you have to nourish yourself. But what they did was, they sat together as a family, held hands in a prayerful way. They charged the vibration, the cellular structure of the food in front of them into a positive vibration and they partook it. So now there is no more negative energy in that. Because there was some scientific research once I read an article where people who were eating fish, they were getting sick and they didn't know why. Because that particular fish at the time of death, when it knew the death, it is emanating poisonous gases to protect itself as a self uh, defense mechanism. And when people ate that, they became sick. So also animals, when they are dying, there is some level of consciousness in them. So there is fear. And in that fear, they become very fierce in protecting themselves. All that because there is no consciousness there, that vibration is stored in the body, in the meat of the animal. So when we are partaking it, we are partaking that fierceness, that anger, that fear of death. That's why a lot of times you see people who are very strong and athletic and all that. A lot of them they are with psychiatrists because there's an unknown fear that they cannot express. All this contributes to that. The environment we live, the food we eat contributes to that. So this is something that we need to introspect and look into. So the other intentions that we can make, all the divine qualities, love, humility, purity are all coming to me from that highest consciousness on the earth plane. They are available to me and everybody feels their brothers and sisters and my thought is one with them. Correct thinking, right understanding, honest approach to life is developing in me and everybody. And truth and you for to contribute to the world, in a family, everybody contributes what they can and the family runs. Same way in spirituality, we all contribute what we can. And so the family of spirituality will move forward. So we have to make that intention that anybody that is truly seeking, they are coming towards the path to receive this highest transmission, which can help them. So at bedtime, things that we do knowingly or unknowingly, they create guilt when we do things that are not supposed to be done. And they become heavy burden. That is the heaviest weight. That's why it's at point D, at the lowest level of the earth. Point 1 is earth point. In that, it is at the lowest level because its weight is very heavy. So without this, we should not fall asleep because this repentance, it is not that I am bad, I am sinned, I am doing, oh, I'm a sinner. Not in that sense, but to truly become aware, awaken ourselves and aware that I might have done something that have hurt other people, I have wronged somebody. So we take time to introspect, observe, and acknowledge and you place them in front of the highest consciousness, the guide's consciousness with which we are connected. And from the deepest core of our heart, we truly say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you and thank you for helping me. And I resolve not to make this mistake again. Without practicing this, we should not, because this removes half of our karma. Just truly repenting and saying sorry will release us from that heavy burden which is holding us down not to fly. And of course, we have the journal writing, which we practice. Journal writing is the very powerful way of communicating with the guide who is on the earth plane. A lot of times we don't even know who the guide is, whether we are connected to him or not, but simply writing it down, saying, oh, Master, this is what I'm suffering with, this is what's happening, this is what I'm experiencing in meditation, this is what pulling me down, is communicated to that highest consciousness because our mind is in clutter. I told you, thought cannot reach. It's the feeling that reaches. So, but thought, when you put it in a journal, becomes a little bit more powerful and it becomes a feeling. In some level, you are able to communicate better because we have not still arrived at that silence. And for this, I have so many testimonies about this journal writing where I personally have experienced when one brother wrote a letter to Chariji. This was in 1987, and he left it in his diary and he went to India without mailing it because his father was not well. And when Chariji met him and he says, oh, I received your letter, and he discussed all the problems, and this guy thought, oh, maybe I mailed the letter. But when he came back, he found that letter was in his diary. And another person who was very new, because we tell them, write it in your diary, she wrote down. And the first time she went to meet Chariji, he said, "Oh, I received many letters from you." She says, "No, I did not write any letters to you." He says, "No, you did." You can't argue with the master, so she kept quiet. But that night she realized when she was writing her diary that yes, I have written many letters because every day I write to him in my diary, "Dear Chari, please help me." So diary writing is very powerful. So these are all some of the. Give me 1 second. So these are all some of the techniques that are available to us as intentions, which we can utilize. These don't take hours and hours for us to practice. Any place you can sit for 5 minutes and come into the field with the right attitude and submit it day after day. The thing is persistence. People say, "Oh, I did it." You did it one time and you left it. It is like in a phone call. When I call my mother when there is no Wi Fi, it doesn't reach there. But I have to keep on calling until they receive the phone call. So they are called prayer lines. Prayer lines are vibrations. And usually, those prayer lines, people are always praying for the earth plane desires. But when we are praying, where we are making a shift in consciousness, that consciousness field is closer to the absolute. It reaches quickly. The connection is very quick, especially when we are coming into point A and making that intention. I cannot emphasize on this enough. Those intentions bring transformation, especially this weakness of complaining, blaming, criticizing, stubbornness. They have to go. Without that, there is no progress in us. So, those of us who are serious on the path, that we want to see some transformation, we can make time for ourselves. Even while watching TV, you can do. So, let us try and practice that. Let us now just meditate for a little bit.